Hey guys, what's up? This is Panzer Dragon, a challenger player in NA, and today I'm going to be going over the top 5 god tier solo queue top laners. So at number 5 we do have Renekton. Renekton is strong early and does show a lot of mid game presence. As mid game he does become fairly tanky, and early game he does show a lot of dominance in the top lane. I mean, you've seen those Renektons who've 2v1 the jungler and the top laner walked away with a double kill. Also, Renektons are fairly hard to gank because he does bring 2 dashes and a lot of tankiness. And if the Renekton isn't chunked after 6, he's almost basically ungankable, as if you don't have enough damage he'll probably kill you both. He's also resourceless and doesn't require any mana, so he can stay in lane as long as he has hit point. Some cons of Renekton is that he is easily kited in teamfights, as his gap closer is on a relatively high cooldown, and he doesn't really scale as strong into late game since his damage kind of falls off, and of course is easily kited. And also if he does fail in lane, he kind of loses his mid game and early game presence. Regardless, he's still a very strong top laner. And at number 4 we do have Riven. So Riven does have high snowball potential, as if she gets the first kill in lane, she does become overwhelmingly stronger because her AD ratios are so high. She does bring a lot of mobility, which can make her escape ganks, and of course chase people down, which makes her an avid split pusher. Like a good Riven player will know how to snowball the lane, assert his dominance, and then continue to be a big threat mid game. So some cons is that she does have a really high skill cap. For instance, jumping over the walls with your Q, doing an auto attack every time you cast a spell, and of course just general knowledge of skill usage. And another con is that she can easily be locked down, as if she gets caught off guard she can easily be bursted down by the enemy team. And another con is that she's really hard to come back if you're behind. So whoever gets first blood, the enemy will get like a chain fest or of course more damage. And then of course it's pretty hard for her to come back. At number 3 we do have Jax. So the popularity increase in Jax is coming back ever since Zion Spartan played him in the LCS. In the current meta right now, there is a lot of tanky tops, so this does mean he does have an easier time to farm up, and the pressure on him is a bit weaker since tanky champions do have a bit less pressure, except Renekton. And once Jax does complete his Triforce, his power just increases massively. And with all of this, Jax has become a pretty good split pusher, as he is pretty mobile with the Leaf Strike, he is pretty tanky with the R, and of course his damage is really strong. With all this, he does become a very good late game bruiser. So some cons of Jax is that he kinda has a high skill cap, as you kinda have to know how to auto attack and move with your opponent, and of course auto attack animation cancellation. And Jax is fairly weak early, except at level 1 where he does have the upper hand with his counter strike. And of course he can feel underwhelming if behind. But of course once he farms up and gets that Triforce, he'll be looking to dish out a lot of damage. At number 2 we do have Tryndamere. So Tryndamere mains are the most annoying to deal with, because he does have crazy snowball potential, and you know if that Tryndamere does get first blood, he's going to put crazy amounts of pressure at top lane. And once he does get that first tower, he's going to get some attention from the enemy jungler, and of course if he wards, then of course that pressure is lost on bottom and mid from the jungler. And of course he can dive the enemy really easily with his 6-second invulnerability. He also has crazy amounts of damage throughout the game because he does scale with critical strikes, and yes, he is basically a nuisance to deal with throughout the game. So some cons of Tryndamere is that he does rely on crits early, as that's where most of his power does come from. He is really bad in teamfights because he can be CC'd, slowed, locked down, anything to stop him. Unless he does come to a teamfight late where everyone has blown their CC, he can of course does have potential to clean up. And of course Tryndamere is easily kited, as his gap closer does rely on him getting some crits on the enemy. And despite being an auto attack champion, he is actually a really hard champion to play because every auto attack does count in lane, knowing when to all in and get a kill, and of course knowing when your next auto attack is going to crit. Overall, Tryndamere is a really strong champion. He can carry a game by himself, and the reason he's in play is because most people don't know how to play him. So number 1, we do have Ryze. Ryze is extremely dominant in top lane right now, because he can actually trade with most top laners right now. And of course, he is ranged, so he does have dominance from level 1. And of course, he does scale with mana and levels, as all his spells do deal magic damage, and mana items are pretty cheap to buy. Ryze can also build against his lane, so he can go Frozen Heart if the enemy is AD, and if he is ahead, he can go Tier Rod of Ages, which is basically his core, and of course does give him the most damage. And the thing with Ryze is he usually does run movement speed, so he can kite most bruisers top if they ever want to engage on him, as he does have his Rune Prison. And of course Ryze's mid game and late game is really strong. And even if Ryze does bad in lane, he will eventually get his levels and of course his core items, and will be pretty good. Ryze can also take teleport to keep up with the farm and not get dominated if he does get ganked early. So some cons of Ryze is that he does not really have any escapes besides his W and R. He doesn't really have a dash to get away from enemy ganks, so if an enemy does get to him, he's basically a sitting duck without flash. And if the enemy jungler is smart, he will be camped, so that could mean a lot of pressure on you. And of course, he probably won't get the blue buff, so once he runs out of mana, he does have to back. But of course, he can just teleport in or shove the lane and walk back. Overall, Ryze is pretty dominant in the top lane 1v1. He usually can outtrade most of the top laners right now, and if left alone, he will probably win his lane and be a threat later. Hey, thank you for watching. I am Panzer Dragon, aka Luigi Dragon. Comment below for a discussion, and check out my other tier list to see who I think are really strong in solo queue right now. And I will see you guys next time.